Good morning. You know what day it is? Hump Day! Mike. So I'm sorry that I'm a little later again today. I promise starting tomorrow, we'll do this a little bit earlier in the morning. Yesterday we talked about failure, and we talked about how people who achieve outcomes that we study, that we talk about, the people that, we always look to for inspiration, never look at failure as failure. They always look at it as learning. They always look at it as, I now have something to distinguish. And, this is true in everything. It's not just true in making money. It's true in business, which, those two things kind of go together. But, I think we kind of get this idea that like once Walt got the bank to say yes and he opened up Disney, then after that it was smooth sailing. Well, it was not smooth sailing. When he first opened up Disneyland in California, nothing worked. And when they opened up Disney World in Florida, it wasn't much better. All kinds of things didn't function right. They got behind schedule because Walt kept making changes and adding to things. And so when they did open up, half the stuff didn't work. It broke down. Things were, and they'd have failures along the way. It's not like all of a sudden you get over a certain hump and then you don't have to worry about anything ever again. I think we get this idea that, well, when you get to a certain point, then all your troubles are gone. And the reality is that's not true. It doesn't work that all your troubles are gone. In fact, your troubles just get bigger. If you have a smaller business, the trouble that seems big when you have a bigger business looks like it was a piece of cake. And that's all because it grows our area of influence. It grows our ability to expand, to deal with certain things. So you start out, you're able to handle a $4,000 problem, then it's a $40,000 problem, then it's a $4 million problem, then it's a $40 million problem, then it's a $400 million problem. The same is true in relationships. As you start out, you got to handle little things, and then the little things become bigger things, and then they become bigger things, and then there's children, and then you're taking care of kids and you're taking care of parents, and then you're working on a company together, or you're doing some sort of project together that you got to manage. The problems actually get bigger, and that's growth. That's life, because we want to be able to continue to grow to handle the next thing. Remember, you're either growing or you're dying. So I think we have this idea that, especially for these people that we study all the time, that once they got to a certain point, everything was great. But remember, Disney Studios had flop after flop after flop before they did The Little Mermaid. They had all kinds of movies, and it looked like Disney Studios was going to go away. And then they did The Little Mermaid, and then they did The Lion King, and then all of a sudden they were off and running again. But then they had the animated portion. Then the non-animated portion also had a bunch of flops until they did Pirates of the Caribbean. They had a huge flop right before Pirates of the Caribbean, and I can't remember it. None of us can remember it, but it was several hundred millions of dollars that they lost on that movie. So there were periods of time when it looked like Disney was going to go away. In fact, that's how Pixar and Disney came together, was because Disney's animations had done so poorly that they decided maybe we should team up with Pixar and see if that helps us in terms of going in the new direction. And how did Pixar become Pixar? John Landis had a ton of success in all of his movies, and then he did Howard the Duck. And he was convinced that Howard the Duck was going to be a huge success. So he built a $50 million house that was like Star Wars Land or Lucas. This was Lucas, like Star Wars Land or something. I don't know. But it was a giant house back in the 1980s that's like 300 million now. And then Howard the Duck absolutely bombed. So he was good friends with Steve Jobs, and he had an animated studio that he hadn't done anything with. Lucas did. So he sold it to Jobs. Jobs way overpaid for it in order to try to help him out. Well, that asset became Pixar Films, which became the second Fortune 50 company that Steve Jobs started once he teamed up with Disney. And when the two of them got together and started making movies, you had the magic of Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, and all of the other movies that came out of Pixar as a result of that, which now they have not had a movie that wasn't a success. Everything that they've produced has made money, has made lots of money, and has become a series for them to do all kinds of pictures on, even if it takes 20 years between movies like The Incredibles. So people that are successful have their tough times, even if they're longer in the tooth. That doesn't mean that they don't go through struggles. That doesn't mean that they don't go through a situation that they didn't anticipate, and all of a sudden they're dealing with something that's very, very difficult. The only people that don't have problems are in prison or dead. If you got problems, then you're alive. What do you want? You want a better quality of problem. You want to increase the quality of your problem. Like we've talked about, I had to pay a lot in taxes. Okay, well then that means you made a lot of money. So that's a quality problem. Those are the types of things that you want to pay attention to. So don't think just because, you could be going along and doing great and then all of a sudden you hit a big bump in the road and you think, oh my God, this doesn't happen to the people that I follow. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Tony Robbins tells us all the time about his business, failures that have happened throughout the years, and they're enormous, but he doesn't stop. And that's one of the big differences is he doesn't quit. He keeps going. Even when things aren't going the way that they want, even when you can't even really see how you're going to get out of this, he keeps going. And he has belief that he's going to find a way. If there's a big enough why, you're going to find a way. Business is about ambition. It's about hunger. And that's really true with everything that we want to accomplish in our life. If we find a big enough why, then the strategy is going to show up and we're going to be able to create that outcome. So when you have the big bumps in the road, learn the lessons so you don't make them again. But once you've learned that lesson, stop beating yourself up. It's time to move forward and go on to the next thing and figure out how you're going to fix this. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Truly, truly am honored that people take the time. Teresa Whitmore, we're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.